Hello, friends. I'm Tom Graham, the Chief of Jefferson Orthopedics and the Physician-in-Chief of the Lehigh Valley Orthopedic Institute. At Lehigh Valley Health Network, a part of Jefferson Health, our experience and expertise has allowed us to redefine the athlete. How many of you worked out this morning, or played 18 holes of golf over the weekend, or 3 sets of pickleball? Who among us has chased our grandchildren around the yard, or cleaned out the garage? The athlete is just the active person, interested in improving their performance, reaching higher, doing more. I did the Peloton this morning. I consider myself an executive athlete. We reside in the center of one of America's great maker economies. Think of the industrial athletes of Bethlehem Steel that were doing that work in those hot environments. Warrior athletes are defending our freedom, while first responder athletes are keeping us safe. There are diabetic athletes, senior athletes, pregnant athletes, the physically challenged athlete. The list goes on. They all seek one thing: to maintain an active lifestyle. Of course, it's easier to identify the scholastic or collegiate athlete we root for on Friday night or Saturday because they're wearing a uniform. And then, of course, there are those at the pinnacle of physical activity, the professional athlete, those with numbers on their back and a lot of numbers on their check. Lehigh Valley Orthopedic Institute is the premier destination for the care of the professional athlete. Last year, we saw about 125 athletes from all major North American-based sports and many athletes from all over the world. They've provided us with deep insights that further the care of each and every one of us in those previously mentioned groups. And we have one of the all-time greats here with us today. My life has been absolutely enriched by participating in the care of 2,500 elite athletes, sportsmen, and sportswomen. But frankly, a couple stand out. Not only because of their accomplishments on the field or the ice, the court, the track, but how they conducted themselves outside the lines. Chris Pronger, he has accomplished so much in hockey. The list is staggering. 2-time Olympic gold medalist, world champion, Stanley Cup winner, Hockey Hall of Famer. You know, since 1917, about 8,000 people have donned a National Hockey League sweater. Chris was named one of the top 100 NHL players of all time. Chris and I have shared a special bond over the last quarter century. What started as a doctor-patient relationship has transitioned into a lasting friendship that I value. I am very honored that today he has taken his time to share insights with us from a long career, a lot of interactions with our medical community, and what he's doing after his sporting career. Chris, our relationship started a quarter century ago. Do you remember much about the beginning?
I remember everything about the beginning. If you recall, I had a nightstick fracture on my left forearm. Another doctor had done 2 previous surgeries. My agent and I went on a traveling road show interviewing doctors to try to figure out how to fix it. I was seriously considering retiring, and the plate that I had in my arm was causing me a lot of problems, a lot of pain. Well, when I met you at the National Hand Center in Baltimore, you just put me at ease. It was almost a miracle, just how the moment I came out of surgery and you just immediately asked me, how's the pain? And I'm like, it was gone.
I remember you were unable to actually rotate your forearm. You were unable to even grab a stick at that time.
Which, as you know, I'm a lefty, bottom hand, I have to rotate.
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest reasons why I thought I was going to have to retire. Just I didn't want to be as compromised as I was at that point in time. And frankly, after that second surgery that you didn't do, third surgery finally worked, and it was a gift. I had another 10 years onto my career.
And a Stanley Cup.
And a Stanley Cup and another gold medal. And
that's amazing.
A few other things along the way.
I remember thinking how brave you were to be facing that because, frankly, we were in a salvage situation.
Absolutely.
I think, as you know, I know of no other athlete who has had that procedure. in career.
To this day, if you recall, I had to go in and meet with the owner of the St. Louis Blues, walk them through the surgery. They thought I was crazy, and you were crazy, to even think of doing this because no athlete had ever had it done before. And to your point, trying to salvage my career, salvage their star player. And ultimately, I think what really drove me to you was just your bedside manner, the duty of care, and the way that you and Cece took me into your home. And
Cece, my wife, I married my childhood sweetheart. And it's interesting, back then, in the first about 1,000 professional athletes for whom we rendered care stayed at our home. Cece would pick them up at the airport, cook them meals, and I think you stayed with us on and off for a period of 6 months.
Yeah.
And you became part of our family.
And carpooling with the kids and maybe flexing a little to boys in the back seat.
Yeah. I have the two daughters that Chris has become very close with, and it was always good to know that you were around.
Somebody had to
scaring
get
the boys off, absolutely. But that was a big decision for both of us.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody thinks sports medicine is, kind of mostly cosmetic. A little this, a little of that here and there. There's so many serious injuries that occur. There's so many challenges that we have because no other group requires the 100th percentile outcome.
Yeah.
Right? You throw at 96, you go to Cooperstown, you throw at 86, you do something different in life. You couldn't rotate your forearm. What are you going to be able to do? How could you contribute to hockey in the highest level without
and
those
continue
capabilities?
You're here, you get injured, you expect to be back here, and expect to continue on in that fashion or manner. I think about one of the things that I always think about is the decision. I went and saw somebody in Toronto. They said, "Oh, you'll be back in 3 weeks." I went and saw another person. They were like, "Oh, you'll be out a year." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not sitting out another year." And then our paths crossed, and you're like, anywhere from 3 to 4 months, depending upon rehab and how much rotation I got back in my wrist. And to me, the number just sounded accurate, having gone through a couple other surgeries and the rehab process and things like that. It just, to me, 3 was a little aggressive. A year was a little long, and then you kind of just hit the sweet spot.
Well, that's part of our responsibility, is to give you the truth.
Yeah.
Because when we're presented with these opportunities to take care of the world's most elite athletes, this isn't about me or our medical community. This is about you and your career. We want to make sure that, first of all, you're a person. Your job happens to be a player, but that day you're a patient.
Yeah.
It was just you and I. That was the therapeutic dyad, the doctor-patient relationship. That was just you and I in that room. And we had to communicate and share information about what we were thinking and what we were going to do together. And obviously, you're a model patient. There was nobody who applied himself most assiduously to that. And it's great also for us is working with the organizations, the resources that the St. Louis Blues at that time had, the Philadelphia Flyers later on, where we interacted again. That's really of great benefit to both of us. Yeah. Right? Now, listen, I know that this was not your only injury.
No.
So, do you mind going over the laundry list?
Ooh. Let's start. I'm going to rewind. I'm not going to say them all, but broken thumb, separated both shoulders, 6 knee surgeries, back surgery, both feet, 3 hand, as you very well know, 3 wrist, jaw, 16 surgeries in total, both playing and then post-playing days, and countless sprains, breaks, all kinds of other things. So it's just my laundry list, as we say, of injuries is very long and extensive. But I think the biggest thing is then, as we've talked about, your post-playing days after you're done training, after everything's all said and done. What does that look like? What are you doing to either maintain or try to live as fulfilling a life as you can based on that list of what would have been accolades is now injuries, that injury list, and how do you function properly or as close to as possible over the remaining years of your life?
There's one that you omitted. You and I share something else.
Yes, I know. I didn't really want to go there, but I will go there. We both share something a little closer to seeing the big guy upstairs. And for those that don't know, I had commotio cordis. I was the first professional athlete to have that happen during the course of a game. Most recently, Damar Hamlin
Indeed.
is the next guy. 25 years later, it took for that to happen again. Very surreal moment. Crazy.
I mean, you get hit in the chest with a puck, right?
Slap shot in the chest. I just felt a little sting, nothing. I was like, in my head, I'm like, cover the puck, get to the bench. Next thing you know, I wake up, I'm staring up at the rafters in Joe Louis Arena. My shirt's cut open. I'm staring up at the trainer, looking at me with scared and just unsure as to what exactly transpired. And I look over, I see teammates crying, and it was a crazy scene. But you think back at that. That was prior to our meeting, and then you get to that level of, okay, how good do you want to be? How invested do you want to be in your career, in your life? You get a second chance, and you want to make the most of it. And I think that also helped me in that traveling road show, trying to find a doctor to fix my wrist, is having gone through that earlier.
I always said that hockey athletes are like NASCAR. You get beat up, taped together, and you get right back out there. I can't even count how many times in between two periods we gave somebody 40 stitches and they came right back out. You've had many injuries, the ones that have been well chronicled, but every day getting beat up. Tell me a little bit about your mindset. I know about your work ethic too, that you applied both to your sport and your rehabilitation, but you've turned so many setbacks into comebacks successfully. Tell us a little bit about your approach to that.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I hated sitting up in the press box, so I wanted to do everything I humanly could to just be on the ice. Playing through pain, playing through injury, playing through everything that I listed earlier in the laundry list of injuries, coming back early, just wanting to compete. And I think when you have that mindset of just wanting to be a part of the team, as we've discussed, you feel a little ostracized when you're out, when you're hurt, and you're kind of away. You rehab away from the team. You rehab and practice and do everything on your own, and you kind of lose your identity within the locker room and within the team. And so I always wanted to be there. And I think the era I grew up in, you were always worried about your job. Like, I don't want to give somebody a chance to take over my role. That's my job.
That's the added pressure.
And it's the pressure, but it's I think it's more internal. Yes, there's the external pressure of we want you to play, we're paying you to play, all those things. We're paying you to perform. But there's also the internal, and I think it took me a few years. You'll read it in my book, Doc. I talk about this at length of just not understanding how to be a pro, not understanding preparation, not understanding my mindset. I had a victimhood mentality. It was always somebody else's fault, just all these little things. And I think as my career evolved and as I found my sweet spot of how I needed to play and then how I needed to prepare and perform, my mindset got a lot stronger. And talking about all the injuries and adversity I faced, that only galvanized me and made me stronger, more resilient, allowed me to understand the grit that I needed to play at the highest level.
It's really interesting for me to hear it from your perspective, because we define what was called the competition care cycle. You go from being a competing athlete to an injured athlete to a treated athlete. That's in our realm.
Yeah.
I always carved out rehabilitation still being within the medical realm. But then all of a sudden you transition to the training or preparing athlete again before you get back to be a competitor.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I think is pretty unique about the perspectives that we've been able to gain and we've gained together. And I actually think we've lived in a pretty unique environment. There's medical care going on every day in all our communities, and that's terrifically important. But we've lived under that white-hot spotlight together
yes.
of the care of the elite athlete. Might be interesting to kind of discuss our perspectives, because we were going through this together.
Yeah.
But I had considerations that were, medical, healthcare related. Yours had professional sports. You were educating me
Yeah.
about what you were experiencing. And I hope I was educating you about what surgical science can do, what can be delivered, time frames, et cetera. And that's why when I approach you or any of the 2,500 professional athletes for whom we rendered care, I always have to remember it's a person
Yeah.
who, your job's being a player, but they're a patient that day. And that's really critical for me to always remember that. And that's why you may remember my rules of three. I always try to say, first of all, let's talk about time frame. Short term is a season, medium term is your career, and long term is playing with your grandkids. We have to make good decisions that match every single one of those time frames. Have I ever given a guy a shot to play in the Stanley Cup or the World Series or Super Bowl? Yeah, but we didn't think that would be anything deleterious in the long term. We have to make really good decisions for the person and the player and the patient. I also remember developing kind of that concept of the last checklist before we would be working with team trainers, team doctors, if I wasn't the team physician, the athlete, their representation, about what we have to meet to get you back. Are you safe, number one? Well, fortunately, being a hand surgeon, I don't hold life in the balance too often. So you're usually safe, but career-threatening injuries
Still,
in the upper extremity. Are you comfortable, and are you effective, or comfortable enough to be effective? Because why put you out there when you really can't do your job? Because I was always afraid you'd be like protecting your wrist and then you'd sprain your ankle going into the boards or something like that. But the thing that has been probably most informative for my entire practice is the care of the professional athlete is a unique laboratory for me. 100th percentile outcome is necessary. It's allowed me to truly introduce things into the practice of hand surgery that have really changed the face of how we take care of school teachers, lawyers, folks working in industry. We pioneered them by working on folks like you. So I think that that's kind of been a very gratifying component of it. And the other is, I think I've learned, and you said, what's it like being a pro, acting like a pro, being professional. And it's funny, I get asked a lot, what's it like taking care of all these professional athletes? Professional athletes act professionally, right? For the most part, all these athletes for whom we've rendered care, so few of them have been anything less than professional. They have a job that is a little different than maybe the rest of us, but they approach it with the same type of discipline and focus. And obviously we have unique resources when we're taking care of a team or an individual athlete. But I'll tell you this, you probably can't be in this game, care of the athlete, if you're not a good doctor. But you can be a good doctor but not a good team doctor or a good sports doctor. It's a different skill set, and we should probably talk about that. But I'd rather hear your perspectives now as you as the patient player about choosing a doctor. What allowed our medical community to earn your trust? What were you feeling within the team environment? Your agents involved? Were you concerned about your career? Give me a little bit of a snapshot of that.
Yeah, I think it was ever evolving because I was in the early part of my career. I would argue that the care was probably not as good, and then it continued to morph, and now it's tremendous. And just with the protocols that they've put in place with the unions and the teams, and just they go to best in show, best in class, and I think that's great. You're playing with somebody's career at times, much like myself, and they're looking to come out of it, to your point, back to 100%, if not greater, as they continue to improve and have their games evolve and get better at their craft. So it just, the mindset of the athlete as they're going into a surgery coming out of a surgery, their emotions are roller coaster, butterflies. They're hoping that it's a successful outcome. They're hoping that the doctor is able to do what he says he can do, he or she. And then the player then needs, to your point earlier, rehab, put the work in, understand the process it's going to take to get back to 100%, to get back to that level. It's hard. And you have to understand that we all want to be back now. And sometimes the process is just a little bit longer and more detailed, and steps have to take place for you to do that. And that's where a good doctor comes in and walks somebody through it methodically and lays it all out. This is the way this is going to work. This is how it's going to operate. No pun intended. And that's going to really give that athlete a better sense of what to expect and to be able to follow those steps. As an athlete, you want to be guided perfectly. You like being told what to do, where to do it, how to do it, because that's what we've been dealing with our whole lives. And then we can follow that path and track it all the way through and be like, oh, I'm a week or two out. I hit this goal, I hit this marker. Oh, I'm right there. Okay, I get it. And now you can really start ramping up your training or preparation for return to play. And I think that's the great part about finding somebody who really understands how to lay all that out for you.
Chris, you've worn sweaters that represented many cities, your country, Canada. You know, I've worn a couple different white coats. I was at the Cleveland Clinic for many years. I was honored to be the chief of the congressionally designated National Hand Center, and worked for a while in New York at NYU Langone and Northwell. And now I feel like I am reaching a real capstone of my career at Lehigh Valley Health Network, a part of Jefferson Health. The one thing I think we share in that realm is they're all championship organizations, right? When I think about it, I kind of have my definition, but I'd like to hear what you think it's like to be a part of an organization that is at the absolute zenith of their craft. You in the NHL or Team Canada, me in healthcare.
You get a group of high performers together that want to work together, that want to build a winning culture, a championship culture, winning traditions, creating and expecting and holding one another accountable to the standard. You can move mountains, and you can, if you're in sports, win a lot of championships. If you're in business or health, fix a lot of lives. And to me, when I don't know many people that have won a championship or been a part of that type of culture that doesn't say, I want to do that again. Nobody says, oh, I've reached the pinnacle, I'm done. Absolutely not. You want to do that every single time. You want to be the best in class. You want to be the best surgeon possible. You want to be the best leader possible. You want to be the best athlete possible. Once you've had a little bit of success, you've had a taste of it, in my opinion, you don't take your foot off the gas. You found the template. You put your foot on the gas because now you've figured out what works and how you need to prepare and operate. No pun intended.
Yeah.
At the highest level. What about you?
When I wasn't operating, when I wasn't wearing a scrub suit, I was wearing a business suit. So I've now had a couple decades as a physician executive, and I've learned a lot of lessons from my exposure to professional sport, right? So I saw championship organizations play on the field, on the ice, on the diamond, and I actually tried to take many of those learnings into my arena. And a couple of the ones that really stand out for me is, first, communication is so essential, isn't it? You know, the message, although the language might be different, but everybody is speaking about the same goals and trying to contribute to the direction in which the organization needs to go. And then it's putting those individuals in the place where their respective success can result in collective success.
Correct.
Right? You know, a guy who plays shortstop doesn't do the same thing as the pitcher or the are the catcher. The goalie and the D-man and the center do different jobs, right? So you have to put those talents and motivations in the right places. So that's where, we've become leaders and really have to be thinking about, hey, right now I'm in a very large, geographically distributed organization, 66,000 employees, almost 40 hospitals, hundreds of sites of care. And so we as leaders have to understand what's going on, because healthcare is local. Center of the medical universe is where the patient and the doctor get together. That's truly as local as it can become. But when you're steering a battleship as large as Jefferson Health, you have to think about how the philosophies are going to play in each one of those locales. You can't just have this cascading one size fits all. Yeah. And that's what I've seen in professional sports. There was a way to communicate with each player at the time they needed it. You had folks who were expert at communicating with rookies and veterans, with folks who were playing different positions, with their contract year or last year ever, or relationships. So I got to tell you, it's been. I appreciate the fact that I got to be a student of high-performing organizations, not only in my day job, but then when I would leave my day job and drive to the rink and be part of the organizations with whom we were together for,
you were getting your MBA.
All the years with the Flyers together. I just think that that's a great study unto itself. There's nothing that you didn't accomplish in hockey, right? We've talked about it before. I'd be interested to hear your insight. What was harder, the gold medal, the world championship, the Stanley Cup, the 100 greatest of all time? So first of all, to kind of just give us a quick insight into that.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, what was your favorite championship? And for me, it was by far the Stanley Cup. Grew up never thinking I was going to be in the Olympics, always playing road hockey outside of our house, and 161 St. Charles Street was always, we were always getting together, always Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, always, somebody's carrying around the cup, and it was just, that was ingrained in my mind. I want to win that Stanley Cup. And to finally, in year 13 of my career, to be able to accomplish that after countless injuries and surgeries and all the things that we've discussed, to be able to lift that trophy at the time, having a separated shoulder, and I was not going to be lifting that thing, was really special. And just, you don't want, it's kind of a catch-22. You don't want to be looked at as the best player to never have won. That's a terrible moniker. You don't want to be that guy, because it is so subjective. And hockey, the Stanley Cup, is arguably the hardest trophy to win. It takes a lot of luck, timing with respect to injuries, players playing at their peak. It's 10 months of blood, sweat, and tears with guys, and it Olympics was an incredible experience, but it's 2 weeks. 10 months versus 2 weeks, and it just frankly doesn't compare, but both were incredible opportunities to learn from some of the game's best, and you talk about leadership and learn life lessons and lessons that you can apply in years later in your life. Being a part of some of those Olympic teams and playing with high performers and some of the game's greats, Gretzky, Lemieux, Yzerman, some of the leaders that kind of are on the Mount Rushmore leaders in the game of hockey. Getting a chance to play with them was incredible, and I learned a lot just about how to push the right buttons. You mentioned this a little bit ago. How do you, pushing the same button on somebody is different. You manage it differently. Everybody deals with the levers a little bit different. So, watching them go about their business and how they led was really lessons I think I needed at that specific time in my career to then utilize later on to get me over that hump to win a championship and win a Stanley Cup.
I witnessed you in the Flyers locker room in 2010. You and I had a cup run together. I was a team doctor for the Flyers. You were captain of the Flyers. And we lost in 6 games to Chicago. So we faced disappointment together. But I remember you sitting in the training room and really lifting the spirits of everybody around you. Tell me what it's like to be on the other side and how you deal with the disappointment of getting close and not being able to accomplish the absolute final goal, but looking back and looking at the amazing amount that was accomplished.
Well, I think just seeing how everybody came together throughout the course of that year, the belief that we had in one another, it takes an awful lot for a group to come together the way the team had a lot of roller coaster moments in it, but for us to really figure it out and come together late in the season and then in the playoffs, it was a magical run. Came up a little short, but I think we all learned a lot about ourselves. A number of those players that were on that team went on in other places to win championships, and I think that team in those moments provided a lot of insight into what it was going to take, how dedicated they needed to be, and how they needed to perform to go on to win. And I think for having lost Game 7 in 2006 to then go on and win in 2007 in Anaheim, and kind of getting that one back, nothing is going to make you feel better. But what you can take from it in the beginning and then later on is just the adversity that you face throughout those times you can then apply later on in your career, later on in your life. When you go through those difficult moments, that's where the growth happens. I look at adversity as a gift. You're growing, you're evolving, you're getting better. If everybody just kind of rolled through life and everything was easy, I don't know where we would be. Yeah. We need challenge you need to embrace it.
Yeah. Another one of the athletes with whom I share a relationship said, "Pressure's a privilege,"
That
right?
is.
And you learn from that. And I think that's an interesting way that I saw your leadership be expressed so vividly, especially with the young players, but so many of the veterans also looked up to you because you had, again, done so much in hockey. So hockey's behind you. Now, obviously, you're contributing to the game, announcing. You've had roles at the league with particular teams, Florida Panthers, et cetera. But I think it's really interesting the direction your life is now taking. I tell you, for one, I'm so proud of all your accomplishments as a family man, a businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist. Just tell us what Chris Pronger's life is now that the stick and the sweater have been hung in the locker.
Yeah, ever evolving. It's funny how we all have our own unique path and our own unique journey. What one thinks they're going to do post playing, and I always thought I wanted to be a GM or a president of a team, and you start going down that path. As you mentioned, I worked at the league office, then I worked for a team, and then it just wasn't for me, and I kind of needed a reset. And then COVID happened, and we're like, okay, this is my reset. And since then, I've really kind of dug into building out a speaking platform, utilizing a lot of the moments that we've talked about to hopefully impact others and show them what can happen with discipline, habits, consistency, commitment, and frankly, adversity. I've had a lot of that in my life, and refresh, rebrand, new chapters, whatever we want to call them, new iterations, and have a book coming out in April. As you mentioned, doing some TV work for Amazon, for St. Louis FanDuel Sports, St. Louis Blues, a little bit of Hockey Night in Canada. So I'm kind of getting myself back out there in that regard and just talking about the game and utilizing a lot of the knowledge I have about the game in that respect. But really more importantly, wanting to leave a legacy for my kids, for my family, in trying to show them that, yes, there was Chris, the hockey player, and this was my life, and this is what I did then. And you have to pivot. There's a lot of runway left all 51 years old, and there's a lot left in the bone, so to speak. And what we do with it and how we impact people and the legacy that we leave, I think, is very important. And from my speaking platform to the philanthropical efforts that we have, and really kind of digging into that with my kids and trying to show them, hopefully how to better the world and better those around us, and be a leader on that front.
Were you surprised at all about how translatable the messages are from your time in sport to now your time in the business world as an entrepreneur, obviously as a role model? Were you thinking about it back then, or when in this journey did you say, you know something, I have had one of the most unique apertures into high performance and teamwork and self-trust and things like that? And how did you capture it in your talks, in your podcast, in your book?
I think it's a combination of all those things. I've had a pretty unique journey, as you know, and good, bad, and ugly, and championships, heartbreak, and everything in between. And I think when the CEOs and the business owners that I've known throughout the course of my career and life, just how much sports and business are intertwined, and just from a leadership capacity and from a effort and work ethic and discipline and consistency and commitment level, what you have to sacrifice to be the best or to play in the highest level, business, sport, whatever. They are so very parallel and intertwined. It's there's a reason why athletes, D1 athletes, high school athletes, are the number one hire of every business.
Interesting insight, right?
Their ability to work within a team framework, their ability to understand hard work, their ability to socialize and interact and be a good coworker and teammate. All those things play into why they are the number one hire. And it's so true that the walk up, the preparation, the commitment, the discipline, all that stuff, you have to do that in the dark when nobody's watching, and figuring out a way to get that fuel on here to push you through those dog days in hopes of one day being in front of somebody and doing something special. I'm going to give you my motto. Champions behave like champions before they are champions. And that's something that when you think about it, it goes deep.
That's pretty impactful and inspirational. I want you to add to it. Hall of Fame players can end up as Hall of Fame people, as you've proven.
Thank you.
And I am so honored to have you as a close friend, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. What an unbelievable privilege it was to share this time with Chris Pronger. His thoughts and insights can really impact all of us, no matter what walk of life in which we reside. I feel that I'm going to walk away with many of his ideas and thoughts and directions that we can apply to our work as physicians and executives. There's a catchy line that so many organizations or individuals use, like go where the pros go. Something, it takes a lot of resource, a lot of dedication to actually be able to play at this level in healthcare, to be able to take care of the most elite performers on the face of the earth. And frankly, I'm just really humbled to be part of an organization, the Lehigh Valley Orthopedic Institute, a part of Jefferson Health, that does it every single day. Thank you.